Devil's Wednesday. This is the state of the fan.
It's not happy, Sam. We're mad.
Oh, come on. I'm happy.
Mad Devil's Wednesday.
Oh, come on. You purposely did not discuss this with me before the podcast, did you? You're mad.
I didn't think about it until you started talking.
I'm happy.
You're happy?
It's a happy Devil's Wednesday. Happy Devil's Wednesday. Or should I say, Unhappy Devil's Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 169, titled Free Agent Frenzy Craziness. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch. On the Primetime Radio Network, we've got two guests coming on today. Brian Murphy of the Sporting News and Neal McHale, good friend of the podcast of Inside Hockey. So, Nick, please tell me why you're sad.
I'm mad. You're
mad?
I feel used. I feel abused. I feel like I got taken for a walk. You know, I feel like that time in high school where I had a crush on the really pretty girl and I took her out for dinners for months on end, and you know, it ended up that I was just in the friend zone the whole time. We got friend zoned by Johnny Gaudreau. In fact, I don't even think it's a friend zone. I think it's the hate zone. I think he did this out of spite.
I think it was 2000 when Scott Stevens hit his boy idol Eric Lindros, and that Devils logo.
He couldn't work with Stevens after that. To be completely honest, I do think we were never gonna. I don't think we ever had a chance to get him.
I didn't think so either.
We vastly outbid Columbus. I think he was 100% in on Philly, and Philly told them to fly a kite because they just didn't want to get into that. And honestly, it's probably smart by Philly.
Very smart.
They're just not in the position to make that kind of move. The Islanders weren't either. So, you know, I know Islander fans are mad, but the Devils were in this unique situation where paying a Johnny Gaudreau made all of the sense in the world. I do understand the issues with paying a guy of his ilk. Brings up a size issue maybe, but I mean somebody who is as good as Johnny Gaudreau, I don't think it really matters. I think you overcome that. So, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the situation and I see that he sends like Columbus. Like, I don't get it. Like, that's a 7-hour drive from Philadelphia. So it's not like crazy to think that he wants to go closer to home, that he would pick.
Is he an Ohio State fan or something? I don't get it.
I don't know.
But
where did he went to college, right? Where did he go to college? I forget where he went to college.
But, Boston College. Doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, I will say this, though, Nick. I'm kind of happy that the BJs, the Blue Jackets, got him and not the Flyers or Islanders. Somebody that was stupid enough to pay for that contract. And this is me talking. I'm not representing you, your opinion. But, look, if another Metropolitan Division team was going to give him a big contract, I'd rather not have it be the Rangers, Islanders, or the Flyers. You know, there's just, but at the same time, a lot of this stuff didn't make sense to me. I don't think the Devils were realistically in the running, at all. But it did show me that Tom Fitzgerald was willing to play the game, which is better than not playing the game. So
yeah. So here's the situation, Sam, is that now we have to ask what's next, right? We have to figure out, like, what do they do now? I'm all about Tarasenko. I know he's 1 year away from free agency. Listen, I would love Pasternak and I would love to Matthew Tkachuk, but those two aren't happening. Like, I just don't think they are. I think that those are pipe dreams that we learned a little bit more about them. And it's It's just not. It's not in the cards. You're not getting those two superstars. The second overall pick was when you had the leverage to kind of make that kind of move, and I just don't think they were on the table. I think they tried to get. I mean, the reports said they tried to get to Chuck, and it just didn't work out. Those things happen. Columbus is in an interesting spot now because they got $3 million in cap space. They have to sign Patrick Laine and Emil Bemstrom. I don't know anything about Bemstrom, but Laine is going to cost. You think he costs at least $6, right? So even with some of the long-time injured reserve, like Boone Jenner, I think he's going on long-term injury reserve. That it's still difficult for them, and you're still going to get an incredibly young team. Kent Johnson's probably going to be on the team. Chianikov, the Russian's probably he's going to be on the team this year. I look at this team, Sam, and I'm just not. I don't know what Gaudreau. They're better. Like, I'm not going to pretend they're not. They're better than the Devils right now. Who's their goalie now? So it's still Merz Linkins and Corpusalo, and they were both terrible last year. So I don't know if I don't know. Here's the thing: is that them signing Gaudreau puts the Devils in a race with Philadelphia for the worst team in the Metropolitan Division, which is why the Devils have to make a move. If the Devils don't make a move, then Fitzgerald's going to get fired because they're going to be bad. You can't compete in this Metropolitan Division. The Rangers made a move to get Trocheck. I think they overpaid him, and they gave him way too many years, but he's going to be really good next year for them. And they made a couple other moves. The Flyers, I think they're going to be as bad as us, but, Carter Hart does still have, he has superstar abilities that he can kind of take over games. Pittsburgh brought everybody back. They look like they're ready for one more run. Washington brought in Darcy Kemper, and they have a really good goalie to go behind a team that's still trying to win. Carolina got so much better. They traded nothing for Max Pacioretty. I don't know how Carolina keeps getting away with this. They got that first-round pick in the Patrick Marleau deal. Now they get Pacioretty for free. I guess people just let Carolina keep getting away with this. And then the Islanders, they're kind of sitting with us, but the Islanders are still a good team with a phenomenal goalie. They just had a down year because of that weird no home games for like the first month of the season. So, yeah. Sam, we might be the worst team in the division again.
Well, hold the phone. Hold the phone. Free agent frenzy is still continuing. There are still other secondary deals that are going to be made. I've said all along that the Devils need to do something to repair that third line, and they did make a trade today. That's part of the news. Pavel Zacha going to Boston, and I believe we got a nice centerman back, 31 years old. Sorry, his name just...
Eric Holla.
Yeah, that's it. I knew it was Eric something, and I think that's a start. Palat's still available. And again, I think that Fitzy, maybe not now, maybe later, let things play out, but I still think you should start knocking on Calgary's door with Tkachuk, just to keep tabs on it. Right now it's a different world than we were at the draft and what happened today for the Calgary Flames. So, again, I wouldn't bank on it, but I think Fitzgerald needs to keep trying. And, right now I like all the draft picks that have been drafted. I like the development of young players at this point. In terms of the team itself, I like the hire, 3-year deal of Andrew Burnett on the New Jersey Devils. That's a start. But there's still more pieces, more deals that need to be made. So I won't write off the Devils just yet, Nick. I think they'll be second to worst, but not the worst. I think the Flyers are on their way there, but I could be wrong.
We need a miracle to be playoff contenders. Not even in the playoffs. We need a miracle to be a contender because the Atlantic Division got phenomenally better. Detroit and Ottawa got amazingly better. And then Boston's still hanging on. They're making moves to at least still hang on. Buffalo has all that young talent. They're kind of in a similar position with us. I think we're 1 year ahead of them, but then you got Florida, Tampa, and Toronto, who aren't going to fall off. They're going to be phenomenal next year. They're all going to be 100-point teams, unless Matt Murray is as bad as he looked like he was last year. But even I still think Toronto is going to be a 100-point team, even with me and Sam as the tandem in that.
I have a question for you. With the Devils moving up in the draft this year, next year, I know that there's that new rule that applies. Could they get the first overall if they're that bad?
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
You can't, once you do it twice, you can't do it again for another 5 years. So they don't. But they're like grandfathered in, so Nico and Jack Hughes don't count.
Oh yeah, that part I'm not worried about because there is a special gentleman that could go first overall that everybody's coveting in this 2023 draft is
first,
pretty
second,
important.
And third are phenomenal.
Yeah, so sucking isn't too bad, other than us having to be more patient. I'm happy. Like, when I wrote that article, if the Devils did nothing, I mean, so far we're on track. Other than that trade with Pavel Zacha, I mean, that's the only player movement. Yeah. But that was bound to happen anyway. That's status quo, really. I'm happy.
Smith is a status quo move.
Yeah, I mean, all this is status quo moves, and I'm actually happy about it. Because, when you look at 2023 with the draft, free agency, all that stuff, you want to be, 1 year more mature with this young nucleus. But also, we get to find out what Mackenzie Blackwood's made out of, the new goalie, Vitek Vanacek. I know it's a slow process. Maybe it's because I tricked myself into thinking 2025 is what we're shooting for. Maybe I lowered the expectations in my mind. But I'm actually, I'm indifferent. It's like I kind of expected this to happen, but I had some good Johnny Gaudreau music ready in case we did hit the lottery. But to be honest with you, yep.
Before you go get the first guest, do you think that Tom Fitzgerald is afraid to make a big move in trade? Because the Devils haven't given up an asset that really kind of makes you uncomfortable since Adam Larson. They haven't, they've made some trades, and I'm not talking about the selling at the deadline trades. I'm talking about when you're trying to acquire players. They've acquired a lot of players, but they haven't gotten I feel that in my body that we had to give that up. You're happy about it, but you're like, tightened about it since the 1-for-1 Taylor Hall for Adam Larson trade.
Well, just keep in mind, when you're making trades, if it's not there, it's not there, so to speak. I truly believe that Tom Fitzgerald's been kicking the tires, so to speak. I think he's trying, and he's being covert about it. But at the same time, I honestly think that financial discipline right now, if you want to build a great perennial team, a contender every year, now it's time to not spend money till you can get the core winning, and then that's when you load it up.
Okay, but here's
that's just my. What's that? It's never going to happen.
Is that you have to pay the core. The core is currently You wasted the entry-level deal of Jack Hughes. You wasted the entry-level deal of Nico Hischier. Now you're wasting the entry-level deals of Dawson Mercer and Alexander Holtz. And future entry-level deals of Luke Hughes and Simon Nemitz. First time I said it right. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. You're not wrong.
I have
I'm
a
not
different
wrong.
opinion.
You're not right.
I have a different opinion on that. But let me get our next guest. How about that?
Okay.
Because just so you know, we got a boatload of people on social media. I'm looking at YouTube Live and Facebook Live. They're loving this, and Twitter Live.
Twitter Live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. There's so many, and I got locked out of my Facebook, to be honest. So I'm kind of in a weird spot. So I'm sorry that I can't read your comments on that. But let me go to the YouTube. Let me see if I can find the YouTube comments. So we're going live on the YouTube. So, all right. Sure, Ray Sherrill would have done something right off the bat with just the fire starter thrown in the Ray Sherrill. Yeah, I think he would. I think Ray Sherrill's on the phone with the Blues trying to get Tarasenko. I think Ray Sherrill's thinking about, you know what I think Ray Sherrill's thinking about? I think Ray Sherrill's thinking of an offer sheet for Patrick Laine. But if we're talking offer sheet, I've seen a lot of people say offer sheet for Matthew Tkachuk. No, you can't give up 4 firsts. But what you can give up is the offer sheet to get Jake Ottinger from the Dallas Stars. That is the type of player that you go after if you're the New Jersey Devils. And you figure out the Blackwood and the Vanacek of it all after that. But go after Jake Ottinger. If you're going hunting for those, or Jason Robertson. Why not? I think they would match anything on Jason Robertson. But Ottinger, will they go 7 right now after one good playoff series? I'd go 7. I would give him 7. I had to think off the top of my head. I think that's a first, a second, and a third round pick. Let's do it. Do it. Give me Jake Ottinger if we're going for offer sheets. That's what I'm doing. What do you think of the Zacha trade from Rocco Del Palma? I like it. Yeah, Zacha just desperately needs a change of scenery, and I want to give it to him. You know, Zacha was a good Devil for as long as he was here, and he tried. Like, he always gave the effort. He was frustrated a lot, and I feel bad about that, but you just got it. Sometimes you just have to understand when somebody needs to change scenery. Eric Carlo is a fine player. He's not going to move the needle for us, but he's fine. But Sam is back. Sam, I was talking to YouTube because I got locked out of Facebook today.
Hey, you know what? It's been one of those days. Not only is it free agent frenzy craziness, it's been a lot of social media craziness. All the fake news Twitter accounts claiming that Gaudreau has signed this, it's guaranteed this, it's guaranteed that. And every time I look at it, I see people getting fooled, and I even laugh and all that. And, I don't know about that. But I know one thing, though. Our next guest.
What do you know?
His name is Bryan Murphy. He's an NHL content producer for the Sporting News. You can find him on Twitter at Bryan_Murphy10. Bryan, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Good. I think probably doing a little bit better than you guys, but I'm doing well. How about you two?
We're sad. I'm sad, Bryan. Why did hockey make me sad today?
I was just actually texting with one of my buddies that's a Devils fan, and it's disappointing. I actually have friends that are Isles and Flyers fans, and I think they were preparing themselves a little bit better for this. But yeah, this was a little bit of a blindside. I thought that Gaudreau would go to the Devils. That it just seemed like too good of a fit. They obviously could pay him the most out of any of the prospective teams, and definitely a tough one for Devils fans to swallow.
So should we look further into this? Should we see, is there something like the Devils apparently had the highest priced offer? They're the closest to his desired destination of Philadelphia without being Philadelphia, because Philadelphia just couldn't afford it. should I look more into this as a Devils fan, thinking that, after getting Dougie Hamilton last year, maybe that was a one-time thing. Maybe there's more to it than just dollars and cents.
It's hard to say. I think if he had gone to another team, maybe you look at the fact that it's the Devils as a destination. But he went to Columbus, who has been known as the team that free agents want to leave. So I find it hard. Looking at the whole situation, you understand if it truly was the family decision, it's the personal decision of Gaudreau to leave the money on the table in Calgary. I understand that. It's on the surface, leaving $15 to $17 million kind of is like, that's a pretty big choice to make. But if it is truly the personal reasons why, then I understand. But it's hard to understand. And actually, as the day kept going on and on and on, I had a feeling, and I actually had talked about. I didn't know it was going to be Columbus, but it just felt like there might have been another team, because it was like, okay, it's going to be the Flyers, it was the Flyers for a while. It could be the Devils, could be the Islanders. Now all of a sudden it's down to two, but it's getting quiet and it's getting quieter. And it just felt like something weird was going to happen. I have no explanation for it. I don't think most people do. This is certainly the first time we've seen a major free agent sign with Columbus. So I know it definitely stings, but it's one of those where there's no real clear answer as to why right now. And obviously, I haven't seen the report yet. I'm not sure if you guys did about what the Devils' final offer was. But so I wonder if it was just simply maybe the Columbus offered them Gaudreau more. I'm not totally sure. Definitely a puzzling decision, though, considering everything that all the decision making went into him not going and re-signing with the Flames, wanting to come home, and then ultimately not signing with the Flyers, not signing with the Devils, and not signing with the Islanders.
One more question on Johnny Gaudreau, because I have to talk about this, because I'm mourning. I'm trying to figure out how to move forward. How do they move forward? How do they? Is there another name? I keep bringing up Tarasenko because the name just it feels like the fit just makes sense. I've had other people bring up JT Miller. Patrick Laine is a name that Columbus is gonna have an interesting time trying to re-sign now. Matthew Tkachuk is like a pipe dream, obviously, but is there like a name that you're thinking of that maybe in the trade market, or maybe another free agent like Palat? Who do you think the Devils should now turn their attention to?
I like the idea with Palat. I thought that he was the guy that the Red Wings would go after, considering they had the cap space for. They ultimately did not go with him, and it's undetermined right now what exactly his motivation is in free agency. Is it the money? Is it the opportunity to go win again? If he's looking for a payday, then I think he's the guy that you go after. And if you're the Devils, you probably are going to overpay him a little bit, but I think it's probably worth it because he's a good player that has the experience of winning. He's come through clutch time and time again for the playoffs, for the Lightning. I think that's the player that you go after. You maybe kick the tires on JT Miller, but I think that the Devils are at the point where it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them one of their top prospects, whether that be Alexander Holtz. I don't think it would actually be kind of funny to see Luke Hughes go back the other way, but I don't see that happening. I could potentially see JT Miller going, and then obviously they could have the cap space to sign him to a big extension. So right now, I would say Andre Palat's probably the guy if you're looking short term. But I wouldn't be shocked if they don't address it right now, because they're not going to contend for the playoffs, in my opinion, this season. So there's no reason to rush and make a huge overpayment in free agency, and it's a player that it's really not going to be that impactful until 3-4 years down the line. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of sit tight and maybe wait for the deadline. I think that might be the smarter move for them to make.
Yeah, and you don't have to give up the assets and all that. So they made a lot of other moves today. So did the rest of the Metropolitan Division. We were talking before you got on, Bryan, about the Devils standing in the Metropolitan Division. And if I'm being realistic, I think we're last. It's either us or Philly. As an unbiased sporting news journalist, where do you have the Devils sitting right now? Just kind of instant reaction. Where do you think that they sit in the Metropolitan Division?
Yeah, I would. Unfortunately, for Devil fans, I would agree. It's probably them and the Flyers battling it out for the bottom of the Metro. Because you look at the rest of the teams, and you have obviously, the Hurricanes got better after winning the division. The Rangers, I like the addition of Trocheck. Didn't love the years, but they still, in my mind, got better, and they're going to get better because they have such a young group that's just going to continue to progress. The Islanders are a team that probably could compete for a playoff spot. It's hard to tell after such a weird year last year, but I do think that Ilya Sorokin is just such a good goaltender that he'll probably steal them games. You got the Penguins who re-upped everyone. You got the Capitals who probably are going to miss the playoffs. And then obviously you got the Blue Jackets who got better with the addition of Gaudreau. So I see them competing probably with the Flyers. The Flyers are such I just don't know who's going to defend for them. So if I had to choose between which one is going to be crowned the loser of the Metro, I would have to, if I had to pick right now, the Flyers. But I don't see the Devils finishing higher than any of the teams right now in the Metro other than the Flyers.
So we won the biggest loser competition. We're not the biggest loser. So
Exactly.
Let's talk about goalies real quick. The Devils made a trade for Vitek Vanacek to kind of play 1A, 1B kind of, I don't know. I'm going to call them both 2A, 2B with Mackenzie Blackwood because right now until somebody shows me that they're the starter, I'm not calling anybody a starter. Do you think that's enough? Like, did they do enough to address goaltending after how bad it was last season?
Well, in comparison to last season, yeah, they did address it, and it's definitely improved. But I think that more is indicative of how bad their goaltending situation was last season rather than how good it is going forward into this season. I think Vanacek's a fine goalie. I think he's a guy that has yet to prove that he's a number one starter, and he could have that opportunity with New Jersey. I don't hate going in with the tandem of Blackwood and Vanacek because I think Blackwood's a capable goalie. It's just the injuries that have really been killing him, and he hasn't really gotten a full season under his belt where he's been the starter. And now with Vanacek, I don't see that as an opportunity, but that might be better for him. And the way the NHL is trending is you need two reliable goalies nowadays in order to succeed. So short term, yeah, it's a good solution, and it's definitely an improvement from last year, but if you're looking at the Devils eventually down the line, is this a goalie that's going to help you compete in the playoffs? He's got to prove it. And right now he hasn't proved that. He was the starter for, I believe, the first 2 or 3 games for the Capitals, and then they went back to Samsonov. So he already had an opportunity and failed, quote unquote, his first playoff test. I think it's just going to be a matter of time. So no long term, unless he proves otherwise, I'm not sure he's exactly the answer the Devils are looking for.
That's fair. And before you got on, I got to ask a question by our YouTube comments about Pavel Zacha. He got traded to the Boston Bruins. He's somebody I always thought would finally break out, but it just never happened. They traded him for Eric Haula. It's clearly just like let's find a change of scenery for this guy. Do you see him as a player who can bounce back, play really well, and kind of reset his value in Boston?
It's definitely going to depend in Boston. It's going to depend on where he plays in the lineup. Obviously, they've got kind of the top 6 locked up where you're going to have Marchand, Bergevin, then Hall, in addition with probably Krejci. It looks like he's going to come back. So it's going to be depending on where you're going to slide. If he slides in, I could see him excelling in the top 6. You put him alongside a playmaker, whether that be David Pastrnak, whether that be Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and I can see him being that final piece to really excel. But if he's stuck in a third line role, I'm not so sure you can see him because then all of a sudden he is the sole play driver, and he's just not built that way. Because then you're looking at pairing him with a Charlie Coyle, and then alongside like a Trent Frederick or something like that. So I think if you give him the opportunities to succeed and you put him with playmakers, I definitely could. I liked Zacha back in the draft. I really liked his World Juniors. I thought that he was going to break out, and I've been waiting for him to break out with the Devils because I think he could be a really good piece for them. But it just didn't work out, and he's going to have an opportunity in Boston. And obviously, Jim Montgomery, he's not married to any of the lines that they had before, and obviously they shuffled around the top line. With the injuries, he's certainly going to get an opportunity. Whether he takes advantage of that, it's going to be up to him. It wouldn't shock me to see him, though, thrive with the right pieces in Boston and become the player, or at least somewhat of the player that I think a lot of people thought he would be when he was drafted by the Devils.
Well, Brian Murphy Sporting News NHL content producer. Bryan, tell them what you got going on. Tell them, there's a lot of craziness that's still going to happen over the next couple of days, but where can people find your work?
Yeah, sportingnews.com /NHL. Obviously, the NHL section will have had a whole bunch of live tracking, had the grades going on. We'll certainly be looking at the rest of the free agency period. A couple of big names still out there with Nazem Kadri and John Klingberg yet to sign deals. I think Andre Palat, like I said, another player to watch. But yeah, sportingnews.com, and I know you threw the Twitter, so appreciate that at Brian Murphy _10. We'll have all sorts of stuff throughout the summer, throughout free agency, any more big trades and stuff like that. See if the Devils make any more moves. Certainly, we'll be covering it. And any of the NHL stuff. Obviously, there's a big event happening next month with the World Juniors that we'll certainly have coverage of, but that's a little bit looking far ahead. But like I said, sportingnews.com or at Twitter at Bryan _Murphy 10.
Bryan, thanks so much. We're definitely going to have you on again. We had a lot of fun here. Hopefully you come on a happier time. Maybe if the Devils make a midseason trade, we'll reach out to you and be like, come talk happiness with us. Come have a good time. We'll have beers. We'll have dinner. We'll do fun stuff. But Bryan, thanks so much. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. Had a pleasure. Looking forward to it the next time coming on. And yeah, hopefully it is on a little bit of a happier tone.
Thanks Bryan. That is Bryan Murphy, NHL content producer for the Sporting News. Again, you can find him on Twitter at Bryan _Murphy 10. And that's my favorite number 10. So I already like him just based on that.
There you go.
But he's a great guest. He was a great guest, though.
Yeah,
I should get our next guest, shouldn't I?
We're just going to rapid fire. We got guests.
Yeah, I mean, we've got guests that want to be guests all over Twitter. Yeah, I get in all these DMs.
In the middle of the show. In the middle of the show, we added a guest. So we're going to have a third guest tonight, but you got to go get our second guest. Neal McHale from Inside Hockey. You know him, you love him. We had to get a Devils-centric guy coming on. So we brought on Neal McHale. Neal McHale's been a great friend of the show. So excited to talk to him, kind of get his eye. He's been working the Twitter just like all of us. Just wondering when it was going to come up and when an announcement was going to be made. Maybe we should, because Neal told me a little while ago that he's like, because I was like, I know, we might conflict with the Tom Fitzgerald presser. He's like, no, there's no Tom Fitzgerald presser today. And that's probably when I should have known some bad news was coming. Some bad news, bad news was coming for us Devils fans. And how we feeling, Devils fans? What do we feel like? I'm seeing the YouTube, and the YouTube is it's still going strong. Burakovsky would have been perfect. I truly hope waiting for JG didn't hurt our chances. I really think he was always Seattle. I kind of just had a feeling that he was always going to Seattle. Horrific day for a franchise. Proven failure of Fitzgerald. No one wants to play here. That's on him. You can't say that after Dougie Hamilton just signed here. He just signed here. I think that Johnny Gaudreau didn't want to play here. Just Johnny Gaudreau. He's a Flyers fan. He was born in Salem, New Jersey. He went to high school in Gloucester City. That's right next to, I think it's the Betsy Ross Bridge, or it might be the Ben Franklin. He lives right next to the bridge to Philadelphia. He probably grew up hating the Devils. And there's still a little weird dichotomy in South Jersey where a lot of them are Flyers fans, but there's some Devils fans because there's some Jersey pride down there. And it's like when you get those North Jersey fans. If you're a North Jersey Devils fan, you hate the Flyers. Think about that, or you hate the Rangers. Think about if you're a North Jersey Devils fan growing up and you were good enough to play NHL hockey. Would you sign with the Rangers because they had a slightly higher price point? Now, I don't know if you'd go to the Columbus Blue Jackets. That part was weird. I thought the Flyers would figure it out. It's kind of insane to me that they didn't. Like, how did you not figure this out? How can the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vegas Golden Knights continuously figure this out? But you can't. Maybe they didn't want to make that kind of commitment. Maybe they did see the writing on the wall that it was a smart idea to not trade that Florida Panthers first round pick or a smart idea to not get into bed with Johnny Gaudreau for 7 years and $9 million a year. Maybe that's what they saw. I'd have to look at their whole cap situation. But Sam's back, so we're gonna move towards Devils again.
Yeah. I love our next guest. I was actually chit chatting with him before, and then I forgot we were doing a podcast. He was a Twitter machine today. Anytime I needed to know something, I went to his Twitter account at Neal McHale. He's a Devils reporter for Inside Hockey, one of my favorite publications since 2005. Neal, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
What's going on, guys? Oh, I'm all right.
How are you feeling, Neal? Are you feeling okay? Because we're not feeling okay over here. Are you okay?
Why? Did something happen today, or did I miss something?
You've been on top of it. I don't think you missed it. I think you know why we're sad, Neal.
Yeah, really, just a really interesting day, right? I mean, I think, like a lot of people, I woke up this morning expecting to cover a free agency that, the top of the class would have the Devils involved, and I suspected, Philadelphia, which went in a very interesting way today. I suspected they would be in there too, and really didn't know if the Islanders were going to be that serious in there. And, anybody who had read my column in the morning, I actually speculated another Eastern Conference team would be involved, but I certainly didn't have, in fact, it was another Metro team, but I did not suspect it would be Columbus. I was looking more into, maybe Carolina doing something interesting today. So for it to be Columbus, I think that was there's not many moments where the collective hockey world is stunned by something, but it certainly felt like something that really nobody saw coming. Hey, kudos to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hard to recall. The last time they had any kind of real big play in free agency, the best of my recollection would be Nathan Horton, and that doesn't come anywhere close to what the Blue Jackets have done today. And it's going to be interesting to see what that franchise does now. I think they have some high optimism that they're going to be able to bring back Patrick Laine, and they've already had a team that's always been pesky, and I think has been, obviously they're not too far removed from losing their own free agents after a pretty successful season. But, credit to the organization, credit to Jarmo Pikkalainen, a team that I think went really hard today. But disappointing. I certainly can understand why Devils fans would be disappointed today. I think they felt like there was a really good shot, and to me, it almost feels like the fan base would be able to accept if they, lost, out to Philadelphia because that was the home team. And, we've seen that kind of, play out in the past with other free agents. But to go to a spot where, I was even looking through the roster just to see if there was any personal connections to players or staff on that team, and there's really not. So, it's an interesting one to say the least.
It just kind of came out of nowhere. Do you think that? Let me ask you this, because this is kind of like my theory, and maybe you don't want to speculate, maybe you do, but do you think the Devils had any chance ever? Do you think there was short of giving him a Connor McDavid type contract? Do you think the Devils were? Do you think they had any kind of advantage in this situation, or do you think that they were making a foolhardy run at a player that never wanted to come here?
Oh, I think they were. I think they were in it. I think this the way it's been relayed to me, and I think it's been relayed in the public this way too. Is this is a very true negotiation. I think I'll be honest with you. I think that 10 o'clock last night, the Johnny Gaudreau camp was still open minded to the fact that he might come back to Calgary. And I think that they weighed a lot of things in their mind and then decided, you know what, I think we are going to try something different. It's a very tantalizing thing when you're a player of his ilk, of Johnny Gaudreau's ilk, that you can go into unrestricted free agency and test the market and hear from obviously, we saw today what played out, completely different situations. I think his camp knew that the New Jersey Devils would have interest, that the New York Islanders would make a phone call. I wouldn't be totally surprised if the Boston Bruins, as complicated as that would be cap-wise, I wouldn't be surprised if they called Lewis Gross and tried to see if there was something that makes sense there. All of those situations being presented to you are very interesting. And I think the Devils were certainly the geography on their side. I think they have decided they could sell him on, the prospect of playing on the line with Jack Hughes, or maybe if they want to split the offense a little bit, they can put him on a line with Nico Hischier and, all of the young talented forwards and maybe jumping on this New Jersey ship that feels like it's getting close to leaving the dock, if you will, and having some sort of success. I think that was something that his camp knew would be presented to him if he went to market, and I think that intrigued him. But obviously he found a situation in Columbus, and and I think it's been reported out there, but I believe the Devils offered, Devils offer may have been even more money than Columbus did, and might have even had a structure that's more favorable to the player, because I think as Chris Johnson of CSN reported, the structure of the Gaudreau deal with Columbus is just straight salary. They get $9.75 million each of the 7 years in salary, so there is no bonus structure to that. Although I have not seen that get confirmed by Cap Friendly or the agency yet. But yeah, I think the Devils had a shot. I think they were in this. This was a target they had. I think they were focusing on a lot of things. I don't think you can ever have your focus singularly on one person or one situation. But I think they had a shot. I just think it came down to the fact that on top of this being a hockey decision, it's also a life decision, and something with Gaudreau, the family. They figured that maybe Columbus would be a better situation for him. We haven't heard from Johnny Gaudreau yet. There might be some things that are come up at tomorrow's press conference. I will hope to try and catch some of it. It's in person, but I believe they'll have some Zoom availability. So I've spoken to Columbus about, hopping on that and, just hear what he has to say. I think that, people are interested in that. It is such a off the wall choice, but, at the end of the day, it feels like, it is a life decision. You have to recognize that with these players too. And that's why when it's funny, like people expect when the market opens, you get some players that will sign. But, when players drag it out, you don't realize that, they're also making a really big decision about their life as well.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. But man, so where do the Devils go from here? What would you do if you're Tom Fitzgerald? You're left holding a bag of money. What do you spend it on? Do you go after like a Andre Palat? Do you go after a Dylan Strome? There's a couple other interesting players out there, or do you hit the trade market and try to get another superstar?
Yeah, it will be interesting. Obviously, I still have some money in there. As I look at this, and you mentioned Strome, I see that Ryan Strome is going to Anaheim on a 5-year deal, so that's another free agent that's off the books. Although I don't believe that the Devils were ever really looking into the Strome. I think the smartest thing, and this is what I think anyone would say about a situation with the team that's chasing it, and it's totally different because the Devils aren't losing Gaudreau, right? They were in on the sweepstakes. They're not like Calgary who lost them. Who if you look at some of Calgary's moves today outside of re-signing Isadora up there, they made some tinkers today. It wasn't a whole lot of large scale moves, and I think that's a smart move on Brad Treliving's part, because they're looking at themselves and saying, we need to stop, we need to not overreact, we need to collect ourselves and adjust and go from there. And I think Tom Fitzgerald will do the same thing. I think they'll still keep filing away at some things that they're working on. I heard the Devils were in on a few other players that could be, competition in the middle six. I think Andre Kasha was a player they were interested in. I wonder about Nino Niederreiter. I'd be curious to see if Andre Palat is a player there. I think there's going to be a lot of competition for him. I was a little surprised that we didn't hear as much on him today. And then I do think that they'll look for trade. The one thing I said even prior to the draft was, the Devils were looking for a heavier forward. I think that's why, it's not just smoke and mirrors here with, JT Miller. They've had interest in him for a long time. I think they really covet that player. The problem has been, at least from how it's been relayed to me anyway, is that the price tag to get JT Miller is fairly expensive. It's likely to include a first-round pick and a prospect, and probably also at least some sort of NHL player. And I just don't see the Devils right now thinking that is something that they can part with. And Vancouver has remained pretty adamant that they don't have to trade the player because they believe they can get a pretty good return for him if they have to move him at the deadline as well. But Vancouver's also hoping they're playing meaningful games and maybe he can be an own rental for them. But, I know that they're looking to get a little bit heavier, a little bit harder to play against. So that could be an option for them. As well, it seems like those options might exist a little bit more on the trade market. So I mentioned JT Miller as a player who they might be interested in. But, I think the biggest thing for Tom Fitzgerald isn't to overreact to this. People are asking me if they're going to go right into the Matthew Tkachuk situation. I don't see that happening. I really don't see Calgary moving back to Tkachuk, to be totally honest with you. I think they're going to, hold on to that situation. And, if they have to move him at the deadline, they'll move him at the deadline. But, the smartest thing to do, I think, would be to not overreact. You still have a young team. You still have your core pieces in place. They're going to figure something out with Jesper Bratt. And, you bring in Eric Halla today, who's a decent player who can, I think make the team a little bit more competitive, probably slots a little bit better than Pavel Zacha, who you never really knew where to slot him in. So that helps with them too. But, certainly it feels like the trade market is going to be the option to explore. It's funny, when you have these kind of days, you end up crowdsourcing a lot of people. So I was talking to a lot of the folks that cover the Islanders. And right before I hopped on with you guys, I had texted one of them and joked. I said, well, after talking about Gaudreau and where, our information, are we going to start talking about, Vladimir Tarasenko? Because he would obviously be another, gifted goal scorer that both those two teams might covet. But, I think that the trade market may end up yielding better things for that. But you have to remember that one of the big reasons I think Gaudreau was so tantalizing to teams like the Devils and the Islanders and obviously Columbus in the end is that, you're paying a big salary for him, but you're also not paying any assets. And, this is a league of asset management as well. So, but, I think the biggest thing, just to say one more time, is I think the Devils are just going to, stop, not try and overreact and just keep piling away at some of the other things that they're working on. I do think there's other things they're working on.
Yeah, Vladimir Tarasenko is I think he's my number one. Outside of like a Pasternak to Chuck's scenario, what I don't think is going to happen. The realistic options, I want Tarasenko on this team. I think he fits so well. I think he makes a lot of sense. And they said that his trade request is still out there. So I don't know what his value is, but that one makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and he, too, one of the things that I think links these two teams up as well, if you remember from last year, from what I remember last year, although it feels like a million years ago, was, it was the New York-based team. So that was, the Rangers are pretty much out at this point. They're going to have to figure out their own cap issues. They did some things to move some cap today, but, they were one of the teams that were interested. The Islanders were another team that he was interested in playing with. And then the Devils, and then I think some of the Florida teams, although, I don't know how realistic that is. It would just be the Panthers. The Lightning obviously aren't going to be able to be in that kind of situation. And then maybe some of the California teams, although it feels like LA is going a different direction, as is Anaheim today. So, it would make sense that those two New York-based teams I mentioned are the ones that would have the best shot at Tarasenko.
Let's hope so. Let's pivot a little bit. You brought up the Pavel Zacha trade. They traded him for Eric Halla, which is, I like Halla as a player, but he's older. He's on a 1-year deal. What are your thoughts on the Pavel Zacha experience in general, from the start to finish? Did the Devils fail him? Was this just kind of like, do we have too many expectations because of where he was drafted? What are your thoughts overall?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think first of all, the number one thing is, I think they were looking to move him because they really didn't see a path to a long future with Pavel Zacha. I think that writing was on the wall for, a lot of the middle of the season when the trade rumors came up. But it also just seemed like, they had maybe tested the waters a little bit about what an extension might look like for him. And I don't think it was going to be a long-term one. I think this was going to be something where they'd have to keep piecing it year by year until he got unrestricted status. So, you get some value for him. I mean, maybe that you could have gotten a little bit more for him, or you could have looked to pony the asset into, some kind of other return or something kind of bigger than that. But, I think at the end of the day, I mean, he goes into a situation that he might like. I mean, obviously he spends his off seasons in Boston. He's been training with the Boyle family in previous years. He's been training with others in that Boston area for a while. It could be a situation that works very well. I know the Bruins have had interest in him for some time. The Devils, Devils had pretty heavy pro scouting presence in the Boston area this year. So I know they watched a ton of Arikala. And the other thing too is, whatever you want to say about Pavel Zacha, I mean, good shot, had some stretches where he really, played quite well. But, you also had those stretches where he was just completely, invisible out there too. And I think that did concern them a bit, that it just wasn't a consistent game. And, I even just think back to when we were still allowed in locker rooms and doing the breakup days. And it just felt like every year we were talking to this guy about, the organization and the exit meeting, two different GMs telling him the same things. And, at some point you got to find a way to correct that. And I just think he was too mercurial for them. And the problem too was he always felt like a player who should be playing higher up in the lineup, but was forced down to the lineup because it was just too unpredictable in that. So I think in Arikala, maybe you don't get, you get an older asset, but you do get an asset that I think they're going to have a little bit more, sure, they'll be a bit more sure on. They know he's probably going to play a third line role for them. Should make them a little bit tougher to play against. Might create some internal competition too. I think that, Jesper Boquist is absolutely going to be, trying to compete for that third line center spot. But I mean, certainly they can flip either one of them to the wing if that has to be the case. And I think they like that as well, just to make the team more competitive. And there's also a possibility too. I mean, I think Hall is a pretty versatile player. He can play on the wing. So it could be a possibility that he can find a way into the top six. But I think that the Devils' plan with him is that he's going to be a player who, mostly, does third line minutes for them and helps them against some of that tough competition.
So this is going to be a weird question because I was kind of hoping this would be a post-Gaudreau question, but now it's hard to tell. But we've been talking to a couple people about the state of the Devils. It looks like they're going to be fighting to not be in last place if as currently constructed. A lot can happen, but you're around this team every day. You've seen these players grow. You kind of saw the monstrosity that was the goaltending position, and they did something to address that with Vanacek. What is your state of the Devils right now? Well, you're on the State of the Fan address. What is the state of the Devils from Neal McHale?
Yeah, boy, it's tough to tell. I mean, I think it's a team that is, you'd think it's going to be better on the pure fact that they're not, with all due respect to the two players, but, the fact that they're not having to make decisions on most nights of, are we going with Nico Dawes or John Gillies or even, towards the end of the stretch and they're having to pick between Andrew Hammond. The fact that they're going to hopefully, have a healthy goaltending situation helps a lot. I don't think people realize how unbelievably difficult the last 2 years was for Blackwood between, COVID issues. You're talking about a player who is, having to come off during the middle of warmups and give up a start because he was just having such a hard time catching his breath. I mean, COVID got him really bad. So the fact that he is finally in the spot, obviously last year we knew it was the heel injury that got him. But if he can be healthy and have a bounce back season, that helps a lot. I think Vanacek's going to push him. I think it's going to be a really interesting tandem situation to watch, and that has historically looked to push teams in the past. So that could be incredibly helpful for them. And then you want to see the steps that come out. You want to see a better start from a guy like Igor Sharangovich, who had such a really strong season once he got going. See different strides taken by a guy like Dawson Mercer. I mean, we saw Jesper Boquist, who I just mentioned before, towards the end of the season. I mean, that can go, a long ways for them. I think Miles Wood, a healthy Miles Wood. I mean, I know he's, going to team arbitration. I think that'll work itself out. But I mean, to have him, come in and maybe that's a guy. I mean, that's a guy who has a lot of speed, some offensive upside, and can add a physical edge too. And he's probably maybe in a spot where he's playing in your bottom six, and that helps give some extra dynamics to the team. And listen, they have $25 million in cap space. They're going to go out and not just rely on their young players taking extra steps. They're going to get some insurance at this roster. They're going to have to spend some money. And I don't know exactly which way they're going to do that. We mentioned Jason Miller, we mentioned Vladimir Tarasenko, but, I think there's going to be some other interesting things that present themselves. So I do look at the state of the Devils and say, they could be a team that could surprise some people. I mean, this is a division, obviously the Blue Jackets take a really big shot in the arm getting Gaudreau today, but, it's not a team that's super, super deep up front. And you could say the same thing about the Islanders, who are probably equally devastated that they didn't land Gaudreau today. The Rangers, have to see how they pan out. They look like a pretty solid team. But, are you going to expect another .930 save percentage out of Shesterkin? I mean, it's tough. So, I'm going by giving you the state of the Devils by kind of looking at the state of the other division opponents there. I mean, the Flyers look like a team that's probably retooling a bit. The Capitals, we'll see what ends up going on with them. I think they'll be they're always a tough team. They're always a heavy team, but, Backstrom's going to be a really tough loss for them. It's going to be really, really interesting. And Carolina always seems like a really steady team, and they bring in two really good players today. I think that if they can stay healthy and maybe play a little bit better than what their birth certificate says on them, I think that's going to be another solid dimension to that team. And then obviously at Pittsburgh too, which has kind of gone full into this is our core and we're going to run with it, even if we're going into their 40s. That's what we're going to do. But I think you have a young team. There's still going to be a fast team. I think there's still going to be a pesky team. But I would like to wait and see what else they do, because when you have that much cap space, you're going to do something else. I don't think Tom Fitzgerald is, I mentioned he's going to stop and not make some kind of overreaction, but that's not to say he's not working his phones or sitting on his hands right now. I think he's got some ideas in mind, and he's going to look to see how he can improve this team. I think that, it's been a really big commitment between his management group and then also the ownership group, and really trying to get this team to the next step. And I think that it's a real priority for them to take a big step. I mean, sometimes you're a victim of your division, and there's going to be some tough games that just happen because they're in such a tough division. But I think there's also something to be said about playing competitive games and playing competitive games down the stretch, which is not something that we've seen. And, there's a lot of reasons for that last year, goaltending being chief among them.
Neal McHale, Inside Hockey. He's been all over the Twitter sphere at Neal McHale all day. He's been breaking news. He's been getting on top of the big stories. Neal, what do you got coming up? I know you have a couple things that you had go on Inside Hockey today, but do you have some stuff coming on, reactionary pieces on Johnny Gaudreau coming up soon?
Yeah, we'll look at a few things. I mean, it's certainly I'm going to go into some of the activities the Devils have had. I'll be at development camp for they're having an afternoon scrimmage on Friday, so it'd be nice to chat with some of the players there. I'd like to catch up with some of the players from the draft that are going to be there, because I was unfortunately not able to be in Montreal. So that'll be nice to catch up with some of those players, especially their second overall pick that they selected. And then I'd also like to catch up with some of the players that come in tryouts. It's always interesting to talk to players that come in on, tryouts and talk to some of them. But again, yeah, we'll do a recap of, Johnny Gaudreau, obviously Columbus, an interesting choice, and anything else that may go on with the Devils. We suspect that we'll hear from Eric Paula maybe as early as tomorrow. I've heard Tom Fitzgerald might be available on Friday, so that'll give us some content as well.
Okay. Yeah, we love the content, Neal. We love everything that you're doing at Inside Hockey. We'll share it on the social medias. But I appreciate you coming on. Such an important day, such a crazy day. and giving us some of your insights. So thanks so much for coming on, Neal.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Try and stay sane.
Thanks, Neal. That's Neal McHale, Inside Hockey, Devils reporter. You were saying, Nick, before I was interrupting you?
Sam, it's going to be up to you to keep me sane. I cut off the top of the podcast because I can't be caged. I am just a wild animal today. Can
you control yourself while you get our next guest? I still have to figure out bio and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll do it on the fly. We're gonna do it live. Let's go. Man, I'm bummed. I'm afraid that like when I look at the Alex DeBrincat trade, and I kind of go back to that, and I have a lot of people be like, "Well, the second overall pick is different than the seventh overall pick." Yeah, but if the Devils did that same exact trading their first round pick, I think it was a third round pick and a seventh round pick or something crazy like that. I'd have to double check the actual, or maybe it was a second round pick. If the Devils did that trade, would you ever be upset? No, you'd be excited, and Chicago would probably screw up the pick because that's what they do best. And, I just look at the moves. I would have rather them. I don't know. I don't know what a Fiala trade looked like for the Devils. You couldn't give up the second overall pick in a Fiala trade. So, but I would have loved Fiala on this team compared to the nothing they have right now. You know what I mean? So, I'm trying to find the words to say how I feel, and our next guest is an Islanders fan, so he's coming on to we're going to console each other, we're going to help each other out, we're going to get through this together. Friend of the podcast, Rob Taub, works for NHL.com. He's coming on. We're just going to have a yell sesh. We're gonna figure this out together. But I don't. Outside of Tarasenko or Line, I don't know what you do next. There's just not a lot. You're at the point of the offseason. There's been trades already. There's been a lot of trades. There's been a lot of movement. I mean, the only other interesting name. Well, there's Timo Meier in San Jose, who people keep circling, but another interesting name. I'll say it at the end of the podcast. That's a tease, Sam. I'm not going to tell them who it is. We're going to talk to our new guest. Can't hear you, Sam. Mics need to be on to work.
You know what? If you knew this board that I'm working with, there's three mute buttons, and I tried. And that's the kill switch, so our conversation doesn't go out on live air when I'm talking to our next guest. And before I introduce our next guest, I'm going to tease the audience because you're going to think, oh, this is going to be the conclusion of the State of the Fan address. We got another bonus edition, Devils After Dark, 10 p.m. Eastern. Keep it here. Set your alerts on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter Live. Scotty and I are going to recap the free agent frenzy that it was, but I just
is he sad too?
There. Oh no, he's happy like me. Like we yeah. Anyway, we'll save it.
That'll be a weird podcast.
Yeah,
but y'all have fun.
You can listen in. All right, so our next guest, he's a digital producer at News 12. His name is Rob Taub, very good friend of the podcast. You can find him on Twitter at @rtaub_. Rob, you're on with Nick and Sam. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, guys. Long day, but it was an okay day.
Was it? Was it okay? Is any of this okay, Rob?
You know what? I didn't move from my room for almost 7 or 8 hours because, with free agency, it's like you just want to be in front of the TV, in front of the computer, because it's like anything could happen at any given moment. And I love that about free agency. But I just feel
it was a good day, but I just feel so drained right now. Because, I mean, not that I got my hopes up about Gaudreau, but it was more like, been down this road before, but it's like, this was the biggest tease, even more than the Artemi Panarin saga. And that's where it's like, and that's where I think me and you guys, like us, like me and you guys, like we are in the same sphere there, where it's just like, because I was listening to you before, Nick, and it's like, you just seem like you're like, not like you're drained, but it's like, you don't know how to feel, because it's like he chose, it's more shock than it is anger, because he chose Columbus over the Devils and the Islanders when he said he wanted to be close to home. And it's just like, it's more of I'm feeling like a shock or numb type of feel. And I don't know like what to think right now. So I came on with you guys to either vent or just like try and get my thoughts together.
So let's try to figure this out. So like the Islanders were obviously like, it seemed like they were later to the party than the Flyers and the Devils. The Flyers and the Devils seemed to be destinations that were always on it. And I know Lou Lamoriello, we know he's the guy who doesn't really talk to free agents until noon on Wednesday. He's just a guy, that's how he operates. People know that's how he operates and they respect him for it. But, he seemed like he was going all in for this guy. And you brought up the Artemi Panarin situation. That was an interesting one too. And I feel like the Devils were in a more similar position of the Islanders in the Panarin deal than y'all were for the Panarin deal, because I just feel like Gaudreau was never coming to New Jersey. He used us for the cash and for the offer, and then tried to use that to get a bigger offer wherever he was going. I think he might have gone to the Islanders because I just don't think it had the same hate when he was growing up. But I think he always wanted to go to the Flyers. He ended up in Columbus because they hit his number. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
I just think that Columbus, from what it seemed, came out of nowhere. And that's like the most crazy thing about this entire day was they literally were not in the sweepstakes until, I guess, what Bob McKenzie said like an hour or two ago, until this morning, that they were going to be ultra aggressive, and they came out of nowhere. And it's like, I understand, Nick, you're feeling that the Devils were kind of in the same position that the Islanders were, like in regards to the Panarin situation. But like the Devils, even if they were going to offer him the most money, it's like he wanted to come home, and New Jersey is home. And I understand he grew up a Flyers fan. I know I heard Emily Kaplan earlier saying that Gaudreau told his inner circle and told people for a long time he was going to go play for the Flyers. But it's like, once you found out that the Flyers were not going to have the management to make that happen, it's like the Devils seem like a slam dunk. And it's just like, almost like, what do these teams need to do? And you have, like with New Jersey, you've got a bargaining team with guys like Hughes and Heishier and Mercer and like guys like that are going to be very good for the next few years. And it's like, what else are these guys looking for? And I was even saying that to my dad earlier, like with the Islanders, like they got what they needed too. Like they have the arena, they have the ownership, they've been to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the last 5 years. What else do these guys want? And I don't think it's about the money, because Gaudreau took under $10 million. He took 9.75, and the Devils offered him 10 for the same amount of years, for the same term. It's like trying to wrap your head around, like, why? Like, what was so appealing about Columbus, other than maybe Patrick Laine, and they do have a young core, and they can be very good in the next few years. But it's like, what else was that appealing? I mean,
but can they even keep Patrick Laine? They have $3 million in cap space left after Gaudreau.
Kekalainen, I think, said a few minutes ago that, I guess, the reporters, that they're going to find a way to, they're going to, move some people, move some things around and keep him. But it's just like, that's why I said before, it's like numb, like, because it felt like the Islanders and Devils were, I wouldn't say being played, but it was like they were almost being used as leverage also. And that's even more like insane part about it. So I don't know. I'm just like, I'm at a loss for words almost.
I hear you, because I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm just kind of trying to figure out how I should feel. And I have a lot of people in my comments. I have a lot of people in my DMs. I have a lot of people telling me like, "Oh, well."
Well, can I ask you a question? Are you mad? Like, I'm more shocked than I am mad. Like, I know a few like people who I were talking to, like that are mostly Island fans, that they were going to be more mad if he went to Jersey. As opposed to him going to Columbus. Columbus is more shocked. I don't know how you guys feel from that perspective.
I think I'm more sad than mad. I'm not mad that he went to Columbus because I just don't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see Columbus as a threat. They still got Korpisalo and Merzlikins as your goaltender duo, and they were terrible last year. You still, I don't know how you're figuring out Line A. They made a couple of really weird signings today too that I didn't really like their free agency. If I remember it, it was a whirlwind day with just a lot going on. But I look at Columbus's roster and I still think even with Johnny Gaudreau on it now, the Devils can make an ad and have a better roster. So I just don't understand his thinking. And my thinking is that he just never wanted to come to New Jersey. Sam, do you have a question?
No, it's not a question. I just want to chime in here because to tell you the truth, Rob, I'm happy. I'm actually happy. And I'll tell you a reason why. Because it's like, okay, yeah, we got used. But at the same time, it's not like you went to the Flyers. It's not like you went to the Islanders. And somebody paid a big price for it within the Metropolitan Division. And it still gives Tom Fitzgerald some options. And I'm shooting for 2023 to spend some money. And if it's not there, it's not there. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, to be honest.
I mean, you have $26 million in cap space. I don't know what else kind of money you think, like, why you'd be waiting till next year when, it's been, I think it's 5 or 6, it's going to be 5 years or 6 years now since the Devils have made the playoffs. They got to make a move sooner or later. And I've been telling you guys that for a long time. And I get what you're saying, Sam, to wait for next year. But it's like, why keep waiting? Like, now is the time to make the move. You have to look at the division as a whole. Even though Columbus got Gaudreau, I don't think the division got that much better today. Or in this entire free agency period so far. Like, I know Pittsburgh, they had to re-sign their guys. That's great. They're older. They're still older. Washington, they got Kemper, okay, and they got Connor Brown, good move. But it's like they're getting older. They're going to have injuries to deal with Backstrom. Who knows if he can be ready for this season? You can only rely on Alex Ovechkin for so long. Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Kuznetsov for so long. Their defense is also getting older. John Carlson's not getting any younger. The Rangers, you've had, they replaced Strome and Kopp with Trocheck when they could have had Kopp for the same price, just with different term. It's like, but I don't see where they got so much better. And Philly's another story for another day. And Carolina just went on a rampage, but they got older too. Brent Burns, 34 years old. Max Pacioretty, 33 years old. And I understand. I think they brought those guys in for their experience. And I think after what happened to them against the Rangers, I think they realized they need some more edge. And those guys will bring it. But it's like, I don't, if I'm a Devils fan, I'm thinking to myself, Gaudreau would have been, yes, a franchise-altering move, but it would have been a move for now, for next year, where they could have finally put themselves not even as a fringe playoff team, but as a possible, like, maybe steal around. Because, all right, Vitek Vanacek, who knows what he's going to be, but you still have Mackenzie Blackwood, even though with the whole vaccination status thing, he's still a very good goaltender. And they're a young team, they're fast, and their defense is getting better. They're getting younger defensively, and it's just like now is their time to make a move. So when Sam, you say you're happy, it kind of throws me off a little bit because you can keep waiting till next year, but
honestly,
this was their year.
I think Gaudreau is too big of a risk. $10 million, one player, 29. He's going to be 29 next month. I'm just looking down the road, I just think that contract is going to be so hard to move. Unless, I was joking around, of course, unless there's another collective bargaining agreement lockout where there's another amnesty, period where you can buy people out and start over again. But I mean,
115-point players don't just grow on trees nowadays. That's one of my biggest things when I'm talking to you guys, talking to you specifically, Sam, because I can see Neal is like, he still doesn't know what to think. But like, he's a 115-point guy. Those guys don't come around very often. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but Ray Ferraro said it earlier that on TSN that you add Gaudreau into that lineup. Yes, like they're a smaller lineup in terms of Hughes is under 6 feet. A lot of their guys are they're not big. They're not bulky. They're more like skills, small. But it's like he would have changed the entire dynamic of their franchise. And even with the contract, who knows how bad it would have been down the road. He would have made them a completely better team over the next 2 or 3, even 4 years.
True, but at least Fitzgerald tried. At least he's tried.
Yeah. So did Lou.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard that a million times now.
I'm going to buy you a cake. This is at least you tried. I'm going to send it to Prudential Center. It's going to be a cake. This is at least you tried. How about that, Sam? That'll make you feel good?
I'm telling you, 5 years from now, we'll be talking about this conversation, how Gaudreau was a bust in Columbus. He just wanted to be there because, I don't know, he likes Ohio State or whatever his reason is. But I don't know. For Matthew Tkachuk, I would spend that type of money. I would make a trade for him if Calgary would be willing, but not Gaudreau. I don't know. I was a little. I get what Rob's saying about the 115 points, but can he replicate that and duplicate that with Columbus? That's anyone's guess.
Maybe not
right
Columbus. He could have done it here with Jack Hughes and how Jack Hughes is distributing, absolutely. And with Nico Hischier. Yeah. I think he could, but I don't. I don't think they have the talent in Columbus. I just don't. Rob, before I let you go, what's next? What's next for the Islanders, and what's next for the Devils? Like, where do we go from here?
I think what's next for the Devils is they could, try and go get an Andre Palat or a Nazem Kadri. Of course, they have the money to do it, and both those guys are playoff performers. We saw that the past few years, and I think those two would make the Devils a much more formidable team. They could also be a trade, like Sam was saying, go out and get Matthew Tkachuk. I just don't know what Calgary is thinking right now, because I think they're still in the shock phase too. Just like the way the Islanders were with Tavares, I think they're in a bit of a shock phase. They have money to spend also, from what I was listening to today. I think I'm not going to say, I don't want to say the Islanders and Devils are in the same situation, but it's like the Devils have $26 million in cap space. They have a lot of money to play with, and they could throw it around any way they want. And it's like they need a big-time scorer. I mean, the trade for Pavel Zacha, for Eric Holla, I'm kind of on the fence about it. I remember telling you guys for the longest time that I felt like Zacha just never fully performed to the expectation that the organization wanted him to. I know he had a good season during the pandemic season 2 years ago, but it just felt like he never reached that level for what he was expected to be as a number 6 pick. And I like Holla, good player, 31 years old. I think he has 1 year left on his contract. I think he could definitely help their bottom 6 or even maybe their top 6. But it's like they need to make their major move now. And Gaudreau probably would have been it, but who knows what else is down the line for them. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few days and the next few months. As for the Islanders, your guess is as good as mine. Like, I know they qualified. They got Lou qualified, all their guys that need to be qualified. And I've been telling people for a while. I've been telling people that I think both Dobson and Romanov are going to get bridge deals. That way, they can get bigger contracts down, 2 or 3 years from now, which I'm perfectly fine with. But he's got to go find somebody to play with Matthew Barzal. I mean, I could say that till the cows come home. Everyone was talking about it today. Everyone's been talking about it for years. it's like it's now or never because they are still a competitive team. No matter what happened last year, and people can throw out. I'm just ready to throw last year out the window because everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong, and that goes with having to get with Chara because everyone blames him for everything too. Even though he was their, I keep saying this, he was their last option on defense, and there was really no one else out there, and Lou had no choice, and he wasn't supposed to play the amount of minutes and the position and the role he got. He was supposed to be a number 6. He ended up being a top 4, which wasn't expected, but they got to go get a score somehow, some way. I don't know how, and I have this feeling that it doesn't even have to be an elite guy. Yes, a 30 or 40 goal scorer, phenomenal, great. I'll throw a party. But if they could get someone to play with Barzal who could score 25, 30, someone who's quote unquote good, doesn't need to be elite. I think someone who's just good, I think they're in great shape because their defense has gotten younger with the Romanov trade, and they've got Dobson, they've got Pelech, they've got Pulak. Their top 4 could be as good as any in the National Hockey League. And they show they can be. And they have their last 2, whoever it is, with it's going to be whoever it is with Scott Mayfield. That's still a pretty solid. That's a solid D. They were still top 10 in goals allowed and stuff that category last year. They've got Sorokin, who he's only scratched the surface, and he can be a Vezina Trophy winner next year. I'll say it right now. I understand that's Igor Shesterkin's
You're
time
not
right
off
now.
there. He's
Full
so
respect. Good. Yeah, but they're going to have guys who second half last year they started to come along. You had Pajot who got better as the year went on. You had everyone in the first half just under exceeded expectations, and I think it was just such a weird year up until the All-Star break that a lot they might have played a factor, but they just got to get their score. They got to get that ultimate goal score. That's been the major missing piece for so long now. And I feel if they get that major piece and maybe they get another defenseman or another forward on the cheap, they could be right back in the Eastern Conference Finals. They really could. And then maybe they could compete for a Stanley Cup final, even though I don't think anyone's getting past Andre Vasilevsky and the Tampa Bay Lightning anytime soon because those guys just throw out contracts and they're just, people are popping champagne for them, and total respect to them because the way Julien Brisebois does it isn't he's ridiculously good at what he does. So, it's down for the Devils, as I said. They also got to find their score. They got to find 1 or 2 pieces. They need a score by any means necessary, and someone to play with Matthew Barzal. And that's basically it for now.
Rob Taub, friend of the podcast, digital producer, News 12. You wear a lot of hats. You're in a bunch of different places. Rob, they can follow you at rtaub_. You got anything to promote, or are you just coming on to yell?
I was just coming on to yell. I wanted to talk to you guys because we were both in the same position today. It was someone tweeted out earlier, basically the Islander Devils are being screaming, being dragged, screaming and kicking until one of them just gives up, and which I thought was really, really funny and everything. But I just wanted to come on and talk to you guys because I wanted to see how you were feeling because I saw you had Neal McHale on before, and I was talking to him throughout the day, and it's just that Gaudreau news just came out of left field and no one expected it, and it's just how do you even react? So I wanted to get your guys' reaction, and I also wanted to vent because I've been down this road too many times before, and it's a little different, but it's just I like talking to you guys.
You know what happened, Rob? You know what happened? I'm going to tell you what happened. We are Zach Morris and AC Slater both trying to fight to take the girl to the prom, and the girl picked Screech. That is what happened. She picked Screech. But thanks so much for coming on, Rob. We had a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to have you on again soon.
Yep. It was great talking to you guys.
Thanks, Rob. That is Rob Taub, News 12 digital producer. Also, work with the great Stan Fischler, who, by the way, should go into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Hall of Maven.
Yes. Can't ever forget about that. All right, well, wrapping up. Nick, any final thoughts on this day?
Man, I'm beat. I wrote down my I have an article up on the Johnny Gaudreau thing already on pucksandpitchforks.com. So
I see that. You're fast.
Go check that out. Oh yeah, it's yeah. So that's up. We have something on Pavel Zacha. We have something on the Brendan Smith signing. Vinny Parisi wrote something that said the early signs of a good free agency day. I have a feeling he's going to write something differently tomorrow, but if you know
maybe
what
I
I
should
mean.
write something. Why I'm happy Gaudreau went to Columbus. I don't know.
Hey, I'm here for that. I will take that content absolutely. I do want to thank everybody.
Go ahead.
No, I want to thank all the Devils fans. You guys have been reading like madmen and women out there. We've done. What is it? It's July 13th. I can tell you the numbers right now, Sam. You want to know what the numbers are so far this month?
Sure. Let's compare notes before we go.
Okay.
What are your numbers?
So far, and this, it takes a little while to like get the updated numbers for today, but right now we got 261,000 page views so far at pucksandpitchforks.com. Just some monster days. You guys are eating up the content. You're excited about free agency, about the draft, about everything that we were putting out there. So I wanted to thank everybody for doing that. That's huge for us. We really appreciate you showing us love. Clicking on our content, listening to the podcast, those two things just show us the love more than anything else. So I appreciate that. But yeah, we got something on everything so far. And we got a couple of older stuff. We have stuff on the draft. We have stuff on free agency previews that still work. Like some of the underrated guys are still out there. So, yeah. Nino Niederreiter would be an interesting name, Sam. I wouldn't hate that.
Interesting name. Yeah, the downloads, we're in record territory right now.
Ooh,
the last 7 days. But I can tell you, we're on a pace. We're on a pace right now to be doing 250,000 downloads a year type pace.
Woo!
Yeah. Yeah. We're growing every day. The YouTube Live is blowing up. The Facebook Live is blowing up. And I don't know. I'm happy. Just want to remind everybody before we close the State of the Fan address, go to pucksandpitchforks.com to get all your Devils articles, the needs, different opinions, all that jazz. And also, 10 p.m. Eastern, in a few minutes, we're going to do the switchover. Scotty of SiriusXM and I doing Devils After Dark, the special edition, coming up shortly in about 5 minutes. So keep your alerts on. We'll go live. Don't go away as we're closing the show. That's it.
That's all I got. You got to end it. We got to get to Scotty.
Well, I'm trying to find the button. I got
my liquid metal hair. Let's go.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me play the music. My bad. Here we go. There we go. Thank you to Rob Taub, Neal McHale, and Brian Murphy of Sporting News. Thank you for coming on. It's been a fun time. We'll see you next time. Let's go, Devils.